So, hi guys, good afternoon. Welcome to the first ever Clever Talk show. We're very excited to have you all here. Just want to quickly tell you a little bit about what the Clever Talk show is about and why we're doing this today. The idea behind it is very simple. We wanted to have a platform where we could have an open, honest, and frank conversation between the brand and the agencies. And we couldn't be more happy than to have Saloni here to kickstart this for us. I'll take this opportunity to quickly introduce Saloni as well. She has about 14 years of experience in the marketing industry and has worked with both agency and brand side with organizations like Max, Fossil, and now, of course, she heads the team for marketing at Forever 21 in India. Apart from her marketing side or the professional side, she's also extremely into marathon running. She's into spirituality, and we were just having a conversation the other day about tarot card reading and this whole new aspect that she's trying out as well.
Yeah, something new that I've discovered about myself in the lockdown. That I can be spiritual too.
Wonderful. So we're very excited to kind of for you to impart your experience and your knowledge with us. So over to you, Saloni, and I think she has a little bit of a presentation that she has prepared for us and wants it to be a very interactive session. So yeah, over to you.
So hi guys, thank you for joining. I think Sanjana has already introduced me, so I don't need to go through that, but just a little bit about myself. I completed my MBA in marketing from Nottingham Trent University in 2005, and ever since then I've been working in Bangalore. I have varied experience in radio, PR, digital marketing, outdoor, and then I have been on the brand marketing side for the last 8 years now. I primarily specialize in international brand marketing, digital social content marketing, market research, and my passion for life is primarily fashion. That is what I wanted to do for the longest time, and that is where I am today. So I want to have an open and engaging conversation with all of you. I don't want this to be a monologue, please. I'm going to talk to you about fashion, all about fashion, how the industry is evolving, what are the new trends, how our consumers are changing, especially the millennials and the Gen Zs, and a little bit about e-commerce. So it's going to be a generic and a fun session. It's not going to be heavy or boring. So feel free to ask questions, feel free to engage, and let's have some fun together. Yeah. Okay, so why I'm calling this the world of fashion 2.0 is because everything that we know about the industries that we worked in, and for me especially fashion, has gone into an unlearning mode. My boss puts it very well that all of us, whether we are CEOs or whether we are managers or whether we are executives, now all of us are on the same page because COVID has really changed everything. So whatever we have learned has really become unlearned, and now is the time for us to sort of come together, put our heads down, go to the drawing board, and start learning again. So welcome to the world of Fashion 2.0, and let's see what we have. So this is the agenda for today's presentation. We're going to talk about fashion, the world of fashion, how fashion originated, what does fashion really mean, what are the trends that we're seeing in fashion today, and how is the entire fashion industry upheaval after COVID, what are the new trends that are emerging, and amidst all these new trends, how are industries really shaping up, how have they been impacted by COVID, especially retail and fashion, and how has the consumer's mindset changed, and specifically a few insights on the Gen Zs and the millennials and their shopping habits, and delving lastly into how is e-com shaping the new normal, how is it going to be different for retail stores, and what next? What do brands have to do to stay afloat and to stay salient? Yeah. So fashion really is not something. I've just put these famous quotes, and one is from my favorite, Marc Jacobs. So fashion is not something that exists in dresses. Fashion is in the sky, in the street. Fashion has to do with ideas, the way we live, what is happening. And clothing is a form of self-expression. There are hints about who you are in what you wear. So fashion is not really defined. Trends are what we create. Fashion is very classic in nature. Fashion, according to me, is very, very cyclical in nature. Um, it's a mix of nostalgia, vintage, and the contemporary, and we see that all the time. Fashion keeps coming back, and to me personally, fashion is about self-expression. I am not a trendsetter, and neither am I a trend follower, but I create my own trends, and that is what fashion means to me. It basically means that we need to feel good about what we're wearing and how we portray ourselves, and it actually says a lot about who we are as people. Let's move forward. Again, power dressing doesn't come from clothes, it comes from within. The whole idea of power dressing is botched up, which is a fact. Guilty as a marketer, but we use these innate feelings of consumers and create trends around them. That is marketing, and that is how fashion marketing works. So power dressing is just, I mean, at the end of the day, you can wear anything and feel powerful, but there is a different aura, right? When you wear like a double-breasted suit and you go into a meeting, so you feel powerful. But it's all about playing with your mind and playing with your emotions. And Sabyasachi says that clothes should be an extension of one's intellect. Very, very true. So how do trends start? Okay, let's understand, where do trends come about? How do we see mix and match? How do we see color blocking? How do we see checks suddenly in the market? Okay, next slide. So the first is really from famous fashion week. So London Fashion Week, Milan Fashion Week, Paris Fashion Week, Latin Fashion Week. So trends actually originate from these fashion weeks. And just to show you a glimpse of what we see on the left, this is all that was called out in spring fashion weeks across London, New York, Paris, Milan. So polka dots are not just small polka dots anymore. We call them the grandma polka dots because they're huge. They create a statement. And sunny yellows. Power suits have come back in a very, very big way. If you log on to Zara today, you will see a full page only talking about suits and codes. Then you have statement setting leather. And not even leather, you have fall leather, so bright orange, yeah. And then you have metallics, sheer, shimmer, holograms. So these four trends largely dominated the world runways. So these were trends that were set by them, and let's now go and see how it got exploded and got even bigger. Okay, so everyone knows Ranveer Singh. Everyone knows that he is a trendsetter. Um, he doesn't follow trends, but he picks up his own, and people aspire to be like him. So what happens is there is a trend that is shown at fashion weeks, and all you need is one celebrity and a bunch of influencers, and the trend explodes. Okay, Kylie Jenner is a trendsetter in herself, but the reason I've put Kylie Jenner here is not only for fashion. Now it's also celebrities who are not only capable of starting trends, but they are capable of killing trends. And let me tell you how. So in 2017 or 18, I recall, Snapchat changed their interface. Yeah. And that redesign did not go down very well with Kylie Jenner. And she she put up a tweet saying that, is there anyone else who doesn't like the new Snapchat design? And within 5 minutes, Snapchat lost $1.3 billion. That's enough to kill a trend. And Kylie realized that it really impacted their business profusely. But 10 minutes later, she tried to recall it back, saying, "But I still love you, though, Snapchat." But by then, the damage had been done. So you can see the power of celebrities who are capable of making trends and who are also capable of killing trends. So this is how trends really, really
I
explode.
think Snapchat was also forced to go back to the previous UI. It just didn't stop there because a lot of people, after she tweeted, kind of felt that the previous UI was better. So they had to retract back to the previous
Absolutely.
UI as well.
Absolutely. You're right. And that is what Snapchat had to do because one person did not like the new UI. So, yeah. So after celebrities come influencers, yeah. So influencers came into vogue around 2015, and now we have a huge influencer trend happening. Initially, when the influencer trend started, there were only one set of influencers who believed, and brands also believed that just following and just a follower base of influencers were enough. So I'm showing you here Kiara, who started her her blog called Blog Salad, or it's called Blonde Salad, sorry, which was started somewhere around 2008 or 9 as a fun page, and she wasn't really blonde, but the name stood out for her. And then she went and dyed her hair blonde. She moved to LA, and then she's made a $30 million empire only out of blogging. Um, and today she lends herself to all sorts of international brands. And then in India, we have our very own Santoshi Shetty, who's worked with most of the brands. Her content, I think she, for me, is one of the best Indian influencers that we have because she works very, very hard on her content. Um, very, very fashion forward, has a complete unique style of her own. And do you guys know who is this girl on the left with the fringe? Anyone? Okay. So this is another new trend that started somewhere in 2016. Her name is Lil Miquela. She's not even a human being. She's a virtual influencer. She's a robot. Okay. And she has a follower base of 2.4 million. She was created by these two founders who had their own startup, and uh, no offense to startups, but startups need money and funding, and startups need fame. So this was their way of getting their fast 15 minutes of fame. They did not realize that by launching Lil Miquela, they had actually started a trend. Now, what happens with your regular conventional influencers is that they have a voice of their own. They have to maintain, fashion is at the end of the day, it's a very judgmental place to be in. So you have to look and behave in a certain way. You have to have a certain style element. And with Lil Miquela, because she's virtually created, her body is perfect. And she's brown in color. So she supports Black lives. She supports the LGBTQ community. She supports social causes, and hence she shot to fame because she was accessible to everyone. Um, and with bloggers, all bloggers have a life, a shelf life, because after they age, the audience stops resonating with them. They have to change topics, whereas fashion is omnipresent. And Lil Miquela is going to look like this her entire life. So she's worked with Chanel. She's worked with a lot of singers as well. Um, she features through VR in a lot of videos, and they have started this trend with Lil Miquela, and hopefully, I'm wondering why it hasn't come to India as yet. But very soon you will see virtual influencers also come to India. Okay, let's go ahead. Okay, so these are different stages of the fashion cycle, yeah. So we have what I talked about, an introduction to trends that happens at Fashion Week. and hence that's why these Pret and couture products are priced very high. Novel elements. Most people watch them on fashion weeks and think, "Oh my God, am I ever gonna fit into this box skirt?" But then you have an ASOS or a Pret or a Zara who will ape these designs, make them more acceptable, make them more affordable, and then these trends are then adopted at a peak level by mass markets. And that's where you have a mix of your Gap, your Banana Republic, your Max coming in, and even a Uniqlo would start picking up these trends and putting it in their basics, and an H&M. And then these styles start going down again, which is where they start getting discounted. And by then a new style has already come into place, and then these styles go into obsolescence. So this is really how a fashion cycle works. So from the novel fashion weeks, they go all the way down to high-end premium stores, to fast fashion, and then into discount stores. And this is where the cycle comes back again. Okay. So I just wanted to show you the three styles of fashion. So there is the classic fashion that never ever goes out of style. Okay, it's omnipresent, and I will show you which ones. There is a fad, which is a trend, which someone has really called out, and then it suddenly, as soon as it pops up, it vanishes as well. And there is a fad. Now, a fad is an extension of a fad, but because it becomes so famous, there are like a bunch of manufacturers who will start creating different renditions of the fad and make it a fad because it is sold at different price points. So an example of the fad, as we see here, is the chunky sneaker revolution, which we'll talk about a little ahead. Denim has metamorphosized over the years, and you ask anyone, you ask any person that what are the key staples for a wardrobe, denim is always there. And denim comes in so many different forms: shorts, skirts, mini skirts, distressed jeans, overalls, jumpsuits. In fact, denims were originated in 1920s by Lee when they created these work suits for laborers, and that's
Yeah,
how
it was during the
come.
gold mine season, right? I think is the overall trend, and especially that's so true. Like I think Jennifer Aniston did bring it back with the whole Friends when she was wearing it throughout Friends. Yeah, like I love that trend.
Yeah, in fact, I had, so this is like the biggest fashion faux pas I made, but around 2005, no, yeah, around 2007 or 8 is when the boyfriend denims came in, yeah, and I actually wore my boyfriend's denims and walked out. Though
I think it's
it
back
was
in
really
the,
baggy and everything, and I took it too literally,
yeah.
but it somehow worked. And now you obviously have so much of a more understanding of different types of fits. But yeah, denim has been there for years, and denim is always here to stay. And now denim with color blocking is huge again. Okay, let's go into fads and fords now. So this is basically Raf Simons. Now Raf Simons has introduced a new version of sneakers, which are very futuristic. He is taking, why I put it is because running is very dear to me, and he is actually creating a complete line of running and performance shoes and making it futuristic. So I'm waiting to see how that turns out. Let's go ahead. So this is going to be an autumn-winter launch. And just to show you examples of how brands and designers take inspiration. So inspiration from fads can come from anywhere. It can come from animals, it can come from people, it can come from conversations, it can come from trends. This is just an example of lighting as a fad and lighting as an inspiration. So Anjali Srinivasan, a Swarovski designer, created interactive tiles that respond to touch, taking inspiration from light. Neons are a big part of lighting, and we see a lot of that in our clothing. So inspirations come from design houses, could be from anywhere, could be climate change also. And right now, there is a huge trend, fad playing out with brands actually creating logo t-shirts that say I am COVID free. So fads are always in the present, and fads die out very soon. Yeah, let's go ahead. So this is another example of a fad, which is holograms, a lot of see-through. You see this in a lot of shoes also right now, and really something that can be worn with any form of attire. Again, pumps of neon noticeable on fashion weeks, being carried over by Blake Lively and J.Lo. I'm a big fan of neons. Brands don't really pick entire pieces of neons or entire pieces of holograms or entire pieces of transparent plastic, but they create patches of those also that you see going forward to make them more wearable. So as you can see, this is what ASOS and H&M have done. So they've created neon t-shirts, they've created neon blips in shoes, and anyone who loves color, anyone who loves brightness is going to veer towards them. Because at the end of the day, if you position them as runway styles or fashion of the runway, these pieces sell out very quickly. And the chunky sneaker revolution, which I call the Ford. Now, my biggest recollection of the chunky sneaker revolution is basically the Fila Disruptor 2. Now, the Fila Disruptor 2 is in white, it's in neon, it's in bright pink, it's in bright orange. The trend started with super premium brands like a Balenciaga, made it more affordable by the Easy Boost. The Easy Boost, if you know the number of auctions that Adidas has done selling Easy Boosts, and the limited edition launches, people actually buy them and sell them in black. So this is insider information that I know. My husband's going to kill me for this. Okay, next. And then Stella McCartney, PRL, Hugo, MCQ, Emporio Armani, and chunky sneakers are here to stay. They make you stand out, they make you look good, and a pop of color is all you need with a monochrome dress. Yeah. So what is the trend now post-COVID, and how has all of this changed? So the biggest trend is Ghar Pe Raho, right? And Ghar Pe Raho has created so many different new names of fashion trends that when I was researching it, I was surprised. So let me take you through some of them. So brands have already started banking on the Ghar Pe Raho trend, yeah? So look at this banner that says Cozy Does It, spending a little more time at home lately, keep it comfy with soft and sexy tees. So tees, what do we do at home? Jack and Jones has already started calling out comfort wear. There are brands that have started calling out lounge wear, which is sleek plus lounge wear. There is up wearing, which basically means that all of us here in Zoom meetings can be wearing the best of t-shirts, but wearing shorts underneath. So that is a new trend as well. I'm not saying that I'm doing that, but and then you have the staycation, which is now that your entire wardrobe demands a complete overhaul because you are here to stay at home. You are not going anywhere. And unfortunately, with COVID, there's what I have heard as a prediction is that there is a wave 3 coming. So this entire year is going to be all about staycations. Yeah. Okay, let's go ahead. So these are the new trends. Okay, so the home is the hub. So there is going to be the rise of the new cozy, which is the new elevated basics that are practical and stylish. And I'm calling these out because later on I will show you a consumer survey that we did. And some of these words are being called out by the consumers as well. Okay, active. So your home is going to be your fitness area, your gym. So active. High-tech interactive systems will bring boutique gym experiences to your living room. So active is going to stay. Sports bras, leggings, jogging, cycling shorts, etc. Trainers. Intimates are going to be big. The 2-mile suit and the 2-mile slipper. So that basically means that the 2-mile is going to be one at home and one out. So when you step out to get groceries or when you step out to go to the doctor or do anything, the 2-mile suit is something that you can wear at home and you can wear out. And the same goes with 2-mile slippers as well. That's why flip-flops are doing really, really well right now. So brands are looking at designs, keeping comfort in mind, keeping fabrics in mind that are supposed to be breathable in nature, and designed for the keyboard up dressing. Okay. So, and very soon brands are also going to start giving you backgrounds that match with what you're wearing. So this is also going to be a trend. So
I like that word, keyboard updressing. So I learned something very good.
That's a trend. And
That's awesome.
I'm guilty. I've done it a lot of times.
Yeah, same.
So there we go. Okay, let's go to the next. So the moods and colors that we see with autumn winter. So what I have seen and what I have realized after talking to a few customers is that the world is already going through a lot of difficulty. There's a lot of disheartening news coming your way. So people want to look for ways to be happy with fashion. And hence the colors, while they are going to be pastel and somber, they're going to be cheery colorways. So staycation assortments are going to be those kind of clothes that are going to be multi-weather wear. So neutrals are basically something that you can wear all the time, mix and matches with grays, subtle grays, peaches, creamy whites, etc. So this is largely the mood and color of what we are seeing in spring, summer, and I'll show you how it changes in autumn, winter. So some of the other products that we see that are going to come up are going to be multi-purpose products, because consumers are becoming a lot more prudent and wiser in what they purchase. They're picking up lesser number of styles. They're picking up styles that they can use across days, across occasions, and over time. And hence multi-purpose products are going to be a trend. So jackets with removable hoods and add-on covers are going to be in. Leggings that double up as jeggings are going to be in. Swimsuits that double up as bodysuits are going to be in. So this is what I largely mean by multi-purpose products. Yeah. Next. Wellness. Now, wellness is obviously very big. We read in the papers every day. This is the first article I read in the morning today, that please work out. Because of wellness, the consumer is very concerned about their own immunity. Yeah. Now, if you are talking about immunity, you're seeing a lot of FMCG brands moving to just launching immunity-based products. So even with wellness and clothes, there are going to be antibacterial fabrics, and bath leisure is another very big trend. So your bath gowns, which you can wear at home, is bath leisure. So basically, this principle is going to merge athleisure with leisure and slouch. So let me explain. Leisure is going to be business and leisure. Okay. So what you can wear to work and what you can wear at home. And slouch is sleek loungewear. And this is a trend that you're going to see very big in athleisure, in sports formals. Because you will be surprised, I read this article that in the month of April, sales across the world for stilettos and heels dropped by 65%. And sales for sneakers and flip-flops went up by around 50%. Because where do you wear heels and go? You can't buy taxi, right? So you have to, you have to be more practical with what you buy. Okay, let's go ahead. Heightened slumber, right? So it's an age of anxiety. Mattress companies are doing really well. And we have a lot of sessions, especially in our organization as well, to tell you the importance of sleep on your mood, on your daily life. And hence there is going to be a complete assortment that brands are going to introduce only on slumber to help you sleep better. So clothes that have material of duvet, thermoregulating fabrics, heavy soft styles, pajama sets. You will be surprised that Forever 21 has sold about, it's seen about a 15% increase in sale of pajama sets, because people are actually now taking their sleep and their health, their mental health very seriously. Next. So this is largely what the home office looks like. So there are a lot of velvet sweaters. There is a shirt on top, but shorts at the bottom. There are crisscross tops with fun pajamas. There is a more chic look to your slip-on shoes. So I just sort of put this together to give you like a visual understanding of the home office. And also the home office trend could also, moving into the cooler weather for autumn winter is going to be button-up shorts and sweaters with denims, and your home fitness. Very, very important. So sports is going to be, the word athleisure broke into vogue about 2 years ago and hasn't changed. Brands like Adidas, brands like Puma have given sports formal a complete new look. Fashion brands like Balenciaga have caught on, and now sports formals are going to be a lot about layering. The designs and silhouettes are going to be a lot sharper, cleaner, minimal detailing. And this is largely to make the consumer also visually feel that they are buying something more premium that they can sustain for longer. Yeah. And what you can't forget is protective performance. In all of this, brands are really banking on masks. So we started with regular masks. We started with hygiene masks. We started with the N95, and now we've all gone into fashion masks. Now designers like Namrata Joshipura, Shivan and Naresh, Masaba, they've created their own version of masks. Abu Jani and Sandeep Khosla just yesterday released a full assortment of ghagras with matching Swarovski masks and fun designs and silhouettes. And what is not covered here is the fact that along with masks, you're also going to see fashion gloves coming into play in autumn winter. So your entire ensemble is going to be a complete coord, from your gloves to your masks to your assortment of what you wear. And also with the protective performance, brands are also in extreme cold weather countries, they're going to play around with double layered jackets with hoodies. They're going to play around with a one form silhouette, which is going to be head covered with the mask and all the way till your gloves. So watch out for those trends. Okay? And this is the color of autumn winter, which, like I mentioned, pastels are going to be there, but they're going to be a lot brighter. So neo mint is going to be the color of autumn winter 2020. And just to give you an idea of these colors. Like if you see in the Saudi Arabia, there is one of the tallest buildings, I can't recall, which is going to be colored now in Neo Mint. So the way colors are defined is from Fashion Weeks. So retail analytics look at what is happening in Fashion Weeks, and then they look at what is happening in the social media space, what are influencers posting about, and then they define colors to predict the color and the Pantone trend. So this is largely the evolution of what you will see in autumn winter, because so I have seen over the last 3-4 years that autumn winters largely go into deep browns or deep mustards, dark grays, etc. But largely after talking to a lot of design heads and a lot of design students, and I would love to hear from some of the design students here today, is that the consumer really wants to be happy in this difficult time, and they're looking for colors to keep them happy, and hence brands are looking at softer but brighter forms of colors. So you will see a lot of marigold, which is going to be there in autumn winter. The blue is going to be clean and sharp and pretty and plain. Peach is going to take a brighter hue. So you will see, so these are largely what brands call the candy pop collection, but for autumn winter. Yeah. Okay. Next. Okay. So let's look at how the shift in consumer mindset and themes that we see basis all of the above. Okay. So I just wanted to sort of lay this out here, because I think all of us have gone through this. So there are decades where nothing happens, and there are weeks where decades happen. And I think all of us have a lot of learning and unlearning to do in these few months. We have realized the importance of our skills. We have realized the importance of upskilling. As much as we think that we know the consumer, there's been a drastic shift in mindset. So let's see what happens. Okay, so the web has become the new grocery mart. Our parents who didn't know how to shop from Big Basket have also learned to do so today. Big Basket and Grofers saw 2x the traffic. Grofers also saw investments. Flipkart and Amazon actually saw pre-COVID growth when the lockdown opened. Okay, so basically what happened was that the growth with an Amazon or a Flipkart started from regular sales to a boom in sales post the lockdown opened with pre-COVID growth, and now that growth has gone down, but has regulated to higher than pre-COVID growth now. So it's surprising what has happened with the grocery stores, and this is a time where investors are actually investing a lot in grocery brands. Gaming is the new virtual playground of all ages. 46% jump in mobile game downloads. Your phone is like your resource for everything now. So Gen Zs use their phones for social media, and older people have now started using their phones and OTT platforms for Ramayana. Okay, Ludo is like the most downloaded game in the month of May, and Ludo is like the most frivolous game which we haven't played, but I'm also guilty of playing Ludo every single day now. And there's been like a 14% increase in contribution of short form video content. We've all been talking about short form video content for a very, very long time, yeah. But now, because the consumer is spending, like on an average, the consumer was spending about 8 to 10 hours on Instagram and social. That has accelerated by almost 100%. And hence the importance of short form content even more. And when I say short form content, these are actually snackable forms of content for about 35 to 45 seconds, and should be longer than that, because the consumer is spending so much time online that their attention span has gone down even more. And look at things like House Party. House Party has become one of the most important apps for young adults. And I was like, what the hell is this stupid thing? Like, me and my sister actually played Pictionary on House Party, and it was so much fun. But I mean, these are obviously apps which are prone to a lot of hacking, so please be careful when you download them. But no one even knew of Zoom till COVID happened. Like, no one had heard of Zoom. So yeah, these are like surprise surprise revelations. Yeah, 54% increase in international air ticket, 534% increase in air ticket cancellations, and 64% in hotel cancellations. I was reading this really interesting article about taking the concept of staycations to hospitality. So the Taj Kumarakom in Kerala is actually providing wedding packages for as low as 90,000 rupees for a full wedding, and F&B for 20 people and 2 banquet halls. Now this is completely unheard of. Okay, um, companies are actually in Coorg. There are a lot of homestays that are doing staycation packages where they give you food and beverage packages at very low rates with 4 or 5 nights to stay and unlimited Wi-Fi. So people are actually stepping out of home and going into nature and leisure so that they can breathe some fresh air and get out of home.
These hotels in Coorg, actually, I saw a couple of ads where they're literally advertising it as work from Coorg and not
Absolutely,
just a
yeah.
staycation. And I
Yeah.
thought that was so interesting. That's such a
It's very
unique way of like pulling customers. Yeah.
Yeah, and 5-star hotels like the Ritz-Carlton, etc., are doing DIY kits. So I ordered
Oh,
a DIY kit from the Ritz-Carlton, and they give you all the ingredients and they give you a full recipe so that you can make it at home, because you can't go to the hotels. Now also hotels which are bleeding are, and then obviously they are selling alcohol at subsidized rates. Um, they are also offering premium and high-ended laundry and room cleaning service to premium customers. So they will come to your home, they will do your entire cleaning, they'll do your room, and while there is a 85% chunk of customers who have lost their income and are anxious about that, the remaining 15% who are financially safe are actually using these services. And this is how hotels are now innovating.
Yeah, in fact, I think that also gets picked up by the consumers, because now, although these staycation things have been going on for about 20-25 days, in the last 1 week, I've seen a lot of people putting a post on Facebook also asking for things like, we want to have a staycation in the mountains, or, you know, things like that. And people are actually putting up their homestays there as well, on things like even network capital groups on Facebook, where people have themselves started asking about things like that.
Yeah. Obviously, restaurant shutting down has been a huge hit for the restaurant industry, and that is where your food delivery players have come into play. So, and I'll show you examples of percentages of growth over there, and hygiene efforts with Swiggy or Dunzo, Zomato, etc. And images and video editors are on the rise. Because a lot of short form content is being created by a lot of content creators. So apps like Canva, etc., are being used by multiple consumers. Yeah. Next. So this is how impact is largely felt across the board. School closures, which are fueling the growth of edtech startups. I read an article about Vedantu yesterday, which got a round of funding. Byju's has got a round of funding. Udemy and Byju's are offering free courses. Fintech, because consumers are now putting their money into financial investments, insurance and savings. So your banks, like I have got requests from Axis and HDFC Net Banking, which have upgraded their apps to provide a more seamless servicing opportunity to their customers. Healthcare, obviously, because nutrition, immunity, well-being, very important. So, and a lot of homegrown brands, right? Because of our Prime Minister calling out the Atmanirbhar campaign. So a lot of people are making that effort to actually help local artisans, local organic brands and homegrown brands, which are now mushrooming and coming into play. However, your home-based food delivery services are also doing well. Your local entrepreneurs at home who are providing food and breakfasts are doing really, really well. FMCG had a down drop earlier because of the increased amount of demand and the increase of searches for essential items. However, they have really picked up, like I mentioned, to pre-COVID levels. Travel, obviously. However, I found something really, really interesting. Brands in the travel sector are also evolving in the travel and packages sector. So just to give you an example, my husband actually watches live safaris of the Kruger Game Reserve every single day. So you can actually sit at home, and brands are banking on giving you a complete experience of like the Kerala backwaters from your home for a small amount of money. And while travel may not happen, concerts can happen. So concerts are going to be virtual now. VR experiences are going to be really, really big. Physical retail is going to be down. We have noticed about a 20% recovery in physical retail. However, e-com retail is obviously doing really, really well. Physical retail, I am not sure how well it is going to recover, but from an overall perspective, I see physical retail recovering to about 80% only by Q4 and not before that. In terms of looking at overall growth prospects, China has recovered about 3.2% in their GDP in Q2, which is big after a 6.8% drop post-COVID. So China has already recovered 50%. So it's like a shaped recovery for China, and that is what is estimated will happen with India as well. Probably at a slow. Next.
Saloni, one question, please.
Yeah. May I know who I'm speaking to?
You're speaking to Soumya here.
Hi, Soumya. Yeah, tell me.
Hello. When we talk about how retail is going to recover, there was a point in time where the government had allowed malls to open up, but there were a lot of stores that were not open yet. So what was the impact that the brands were going through during that time, and what were the steps that they took to ensure, because I'm assuming they were asked to pay mall rent as well during that time, so they would have been facing those charges.
Once the lockdown opened, actually malls did not open for another month and a half. Obviously, because of safety security issues, so malls had to comply with government regulations to ensure that all employees are wearing masks, sanitization is happening, temperature checks are happening, etc. And a lot of mall owners and mall partners were having negotiations with brands to bring down mall rentals, to bring down maintenance rates, etc. And to a large extent, the brands that succeeded were the conglomerates, like the Landmark Group or the Aditya Birla Group, etc. Because of the sheer number of brands and the networking capabilities. That took like another month and a half because the negotiations were very, very heavy. This thus had a massive impact on retail sales, with footfalls happening only at about 20-25%, and sales are also currently at that level only. And while we do see stores opening, people are really scared to go out to malls and shop, and they prefer being in the confines of the home, and largely also because of the fact that the number of cases are on the rise again. So you are absolutely right. It's had a major impact on physical retail, and it's going to take a long time for recovery to happen. Reminded of physical retail, I want to highlight that there is this term called revenge shopping, which is huge. So if you actually read about revenge shopping, in Hong Kong, Hermes made $1 million in one day when the lockdown opened. So what happened was that people were frustrated because they were sitting at home and they wanted to prove to themselves that they are capable of shopping and they're capable of going back to how life was for them, and hence they went and shopped the whole day. So you must read up on revenge shopping. It's a very interesting trend. And we saw that to some extent with our own um, fast fashion brands, because fast fashion comes under a non-discretionary spend, right? So we assume that consumers would not buy clothes, but you will be surprised. So these are some of the big themes that we see with consumers, is that there is a lot of tech adoption. Okay, there's work from home, there's video conferencing. The way the Indian consumer is working is changing. Work from home has gone up almost 25% above the baseline. Uh, a lot of media consumption is happening. So the consumer is online most of the time. So this is a fantastic opportunity to understand the consumer journey and the touch points across where they are browsing, shopping, consuming news, media and entertainment, and hence targeting them at those micro moments. Um, a lot of focus on self-care. Um, People are not actually looking to buy; they're looking to breathe, and hence you have to find a larger purpose and be that larger purpose in the consumer's life for them to make space for that brand and make a purchase. So the brand purpose needs to be very durable. People are only going to believe brands and companies that actually walk the talk. Okay, you may be laying off 1,000 employees but promising a fit and healthy life, but people are not going to believe you. I'm not going to name the brand, but you'll understand. Um, and legacy brands are winning. So obviously, because brands that have promised trust, brands have that have made a connection over a long period of time are the brands that are going to survive. Uh, so brands that have actually made a difference. For example, I found this beautiful marketing campaign, and you must go and check it out, by Lay's, where all they did was use the simple concept of packaging, but thank Swiggy, thank Dunzo, thank doctors, paramedics, etc. on their packaging. So this is where brands really need to come together and not compete with each other. They need to make space for everyone and walk the talk together. That is where real change and sustainable change will happen. Yeah.
So while you're talking about Lay's, we actually we were one of the brands that got featured. One of our clients got featured in the Lay's marketing campaign that you were speaking about. We were working with Metro, and Lay's had actually picked up and thanked Metro for all the efforts that they are putting in during the times of COVID as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was very, I mean, this is so humane, right? Actually, brands have to come out of their thinking shell and actually understand how they can make a difference together.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where the Lay's campaign comes topmost to my mind. So having discussed this, I now want to introduce to you a mentee of mine. She's one of my first mentees, Aishwarya, who is an MBA student from IIM Indore. She worked with me for a month and a half, and her favorite subjects include marketing, economics, and strategy. She loves reading, swimming, and watching documentaries. So Aishwarya and I did a survey with over 10,000 customers, primarily Gen Zs and millennials, to understand how the consumer trend has changed post-COVID. So Aishwarya, come on board. Let's hear you.
Hi, Saloni. Yes, I'm here.
Hi. Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, you are.
All right. Yeah, so just to continue about what Saloni was speaking about, my internship was, I think, at a very opportune time for me, because for two reasons. I think because working with Saloni, one, because she's a very experienced mentor to get, and I got lucky. And also being a part of an industry that was in the middle of those that got affected by the pandemic directly. I think that was the first reason. And the second was to watch a mammoth like ABFRL go on to crisis mode and to actually see how they sort of jump back and how everybody responds to what's happening in the industry. So that was really interesting. So to begin talking about the survey, one of the questions that we wanted to capture was to sort of understand the consumer preference when it comes to where they'd like to shop once the lockdown ends. Surprisingly, or not so surprisingly, because people hold retail experience and the touch of feel of actually the fit, having that fit of that cloth on you so important. People did want to go back to stores and shop and not just shop online. But this was also in the beginning of when the lockdown happened, and as Saloni mentioned, that now there is, as the gravity of situation increases, maybe the retail space might change that way. uh,
Yeah, I just wanted to add one point here, that what is surprising is that while the whole world was scared of stepping out during the pandemic, there is almost an equal percentage of people who wanted to shop online and shop in stores.
right.
And the shopping in store requirement was primarily coming from the tier 2 markets, where we saw a higher propensity of people wanting to come out of their homes and come out and shop, is because also of their exposure to online media and online shopping, which is still on a boom stage.
True. That's right. And so another question that we sort of, this was specific for the Forever 21 brand. So we wanted to ask them about what product category, in the sense, what will they be looking for when they shop with us next? And something that was interesting was that despite all the fads and trends that Saloni had mentioned, the destination products of the brand, which are the most selling, most core to the brand, which are the dresses, tops, t-shirts, and denims for Forever 21, are the most sought after, even after as soon as they could be shopping with the brand. So that's something that's interesting, because as important as fads and trends are for the consumers, at the end of the day, these basic destination products, or what the brand is actually known for, will, I think, stay solid. We can go to the next slide. Yeah. So we also had an open-ended qualitative response that we wanted to sort of capture. And as Saloni already mentioned, the need for protective gear being trendy and being in line with the brand. And a lot of brands have now responded to this. In fact, most of the ABFRL brands have responded to this as well. And another point mentioned was the importance of having flexible clothing, something that is easy to wear inside the house, something that's easy to maintain as people work from home, and also something that's very multi-purpose, as people don't want to switch outfits multiple times as they previously did before during when they stay at home working or going out for their groceries. So they just want to spruce up casual clothing in a way. Yeah, we'll go to the next one. Yeah, so as mentioned, this is what people are expecting now to be what they'll purchase more of casual dresses, more of basic stuff, more of denim options, something that they can wear out shopping or, running their errands, and also something that they can just switch it up and wear for their formal online meeting on their desktop. And also talking about summer, something that obviously that comes under the umbrella of being comfortable clothing. So that, because that was very specific to when we sent out the survey, because that was the season that
I wanted to add here was sustainability. Now, sustainability is here to stay. And brands that don't pick up on the sustainability angle are going to lose out, because the consumer is becoming a lot more conscious about what they wear, how what they wear is going to impact themselves, their own health, as well as the environment. They need to trust brands. And knowing where clothes come from is also very, very important. Sellers like Amazon have actually made it a mandate for brands to identify the source from where the clothes come from. It's one of the reasons is also because of the underlying tensions with China, but they want to now promote more homegrown products. And when we talk about sustainability, it's also related to the consumer's mindset, that is to pick up lesser products and pick up more multi-purpose products. And hence, sustainability will cost a little more, but it is worth spending a premium on because it will last longer. And it also indicates a sign of belief and trust.
While touch basing on sustainability, I just had a quick question. What steps is Forever 21 taking right now to be more sustainable?
Yeah, so I think this is a very good question because Forever 21 has for the longest time been, um, I mean, we see a lot of posts on our social media saying, oh, you're killing sheep, you're taking the wool, what are you doing? But I mean, that's not really the case. But there is something in the pipeline, and it's in the pipeline this year. And you will see that in fashion and apparel. Over and above that, we're using a lot of our existing fabric to create accessories and to create masks. So there are substantial steps being taken by the brand, and we should see that come into play in autumn winter.
Great, great. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, so as already mentioned, this is something. So these are some of the new sort of trends or sort of product lines that people are looking for, especially when it comes to lingerie expectation from Forever 21, or as Saloni already mentioned, the up and coming fitness and athleisure movement that's going to happen because people are at home and they are actually investing a lot in working out from home, and also as influencers and people who work out from home who are uploading videos online are on the rise. People will also catch up to these trends and hence expect to buy the sort of clothing that they will need for the same. And given that the summer was on set, so people liked, there was a lot of praise given to Forever 21 for their floral dresses, maxi dresses with the bright colors, and that they were very comfortable, which is what people thought would sort of go along with their summers because they expect. In fact, I think this was a very positive response because people expected to go out at some point because they kept saying in the feedback that, you know, when I go out, I'd go to Forever 21 and get that retail experience that I've been longing for. But this was very in the initial stage of when the lockdown began. Nobody knew how bad it would get. So, but still, that's how people, I think, were staying optimistic back then. So now coming upon the safety part of how they expected brands to react. This, I think, has already been done by most of the retail stores now, which is to sort of have that minimum checklist of doing safety measures on their end, which is having sanitization in the beginning, temperature checks, ensuring cashless billing, ensuring physical distancing inside the stores, and how they treat clothes that were once tried, and also appointments and slots that were given to people so that there's no crowding in the stores, and so the number of people inside a store is limited, which is already being followed. But now when we talk about what's actually happening in the future, as Saloni mentioned, this is a huge opportunity for virtual reality, for AR to step in, because that is the gap that it will try to, like, for especially fashion retail, that it will try to fill in between that experience of going to a store and sitting at home and shopping, but then getting some sort of an experience with the brand. And also there are some gaps that still need to be fixed, I think, in terms of transparency about what happens when I return a clothing that I order to my house. How do I ensure that it's safe? And also there is this term that's coming up that is hyper local, which is combining homes and stores that are closest to you and then sort of making that an online retail experience. So stuff like this that brands are working on, and I think there's still a lot of space that can be explored after the minimum has been done. So that's
Great.
it on
Thank you, Aishwarya.
Thank you, Saloni. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so great. Let's talk about how e-commerce is on the boom, and how, while the consumer mindset has shifted, while we have touched upon some of the habits online, how are they more prominently looked into in terms of sales and in terms of behavior? Okay, so I think the biggest news right now that everyone is talking about is Jio getting financed by the FANG companies, which is, And that's like the biggest achievement, right? So from FANG, there is now Facebook and Google that have invested in Geo. Why? Because of digital Sarvodaya, which is all about upliftment using digital technology for the masses. So how has that impacted us? Even though we are 77% below the baseline, all your food delivery is supported through Swiggy and Zomato. So this is going to be a new way of DIYs and for food ordering. Grocery and pharmacy that we talked about. So there's GeoMart, there's Amazon Movies, there's Netflix, and then there is workplaces. So workplaces are also 49% below the baseline because they are now encouraging people to work from home. So TCS has asked majority of their people to work from home. Amazon has asked people to work from home for the rest of the year. Google, in fact, has also asked their employees to work from home for the rest of the year and has given a stipend to each employee to purchase furniture for themselves so that they can make their work from home lives more convenient. And then obviously the home is becoming a melting pot of all the action. So these are cues largely that marketers have to look into so that they can accelerate their marketing plans. And how internet has really disrupted the sales channels. So categories that were low involvement have now suddenly become high involvement in the online space. So F&B, grocery orders, pharmacy orders have all moved online. And what is very clearly evident is that percentage of consumers now say that they pay more attention to costs and prices about what they're paying. 59% want to pay for the same brand as always because there is a queue that talks about brand trust, that talks about brand sustainability. 68% talk about paying with credit cards. I don't remember the last time I made a payment through cash. I don't fancy going to an ATM because it is not safe anymore. 63% pay more attention to the original products. And 47% talk about buying branded products. So brands that actually walk the talk, like I mentioned earlier, right? So salience is going to play a major role in consumer engagement, sales, and brand growth. And 27% consumers want brands to attack the crisis and demonstrate that they can. And 15% of brands say that they want brands to talk about what is the practical solutions that they can help for consumers in their daily life. So it is really important for brands to show solidarity, step up, show trust, become more humane, become more responsible, and be less frivolous. And it is very important for brands to understand that their source of sales is now going to move online than stay offline only. So omni-channel is going to play a huge role in becoming one of the parts of the consumer journey. And what are the new bulwarks of consumer attention, right? We talked about gaming, 76% up. We talked about social, 82% up. News, 453%. But my request to all of you is please stay away from depressing news. Video players, 113%. Which is what we were talking about before the session started, is that Ramayan achieved a viewership of 77 million. I mean, when was the last time we watched Ramayan? Was on Doordarshan when we were kids. And I think largely, and I have always been a big believer of digital, and brands that invest very strategically in TV, which is OTT media and digital, are the ones that are going to come out successful in the long run. I just wanted to lay this slide out here because there is brand, there is an agency, which is you, and there's marketing, right? So it is very important for brands now to spend even more smartly and strategically, because marketing viewed as a cost has largely been scaled down with a lot of companies, right? So marketers have to now be a lot smarter in terms of how to place themselves in the consumers' lives. Um, and not only marketing, I think process development is going to evolve, supply chains are going to evolve, VM is going to evolve, how operations is going to work is going to evolve, right? And it is the responsibility of agencies and brands to work together, not as a brand and an agency, and I've always maintained this, to be partners. So agencies now need to go beyond addressing just a communication problem to understanding and addressing a brand intelligence problem and providing a solution there. Look at Facebook and YouTube, which have dropped their CPMs by almost 40 to 50%. And all the consumer is looking for really in the marketing space online is for hygiene. So they're looking for a seamless consumer experience, and that is for brand and agencies to really work together to understand how to minimize the number of broken links, to minimize the number of errors, so that the customer can really find the best possible three-step click to making a purchase. And for marketing to finally understand that reacting is not the solution to a problem, responding is the solution to a problem. And just by being a first mover is not going to make you win in the road ahead. These are consumers, these are smart consumers who are watching us, and 45% of consumers are buying only enough for their long-term requirements. So this percentage of long-term buying has gone down, and we have to find that space for ourselves over there by being emotionally respondent to consumers' attention. Okay, so this brings me to the end of my long lecture. So I'd like to leave you with a few words. So which brands are really going to survive the pandemic? Yeah, brands which are agile, financially prudent, with all these efforts on sustainability, on AI, on marketing automation, etc. The bottom line should not move. So financial prudence is of utmost importance. People above profits, okay? Brands that actually walk the talk in terms of keeping their employees together, taking care of their employees, taking care of their financial safety, their mental health, their security, etc., are brands that are going to gain brownie points. Responsible brands, sustainable, humane, entrepreneurial mindset. Please understand that the marketing plans, the agency plans, client plans that you created have all gone down the drain, and every day is a new day. So please wake up thinking that every day you're going to go back to the drawing board and think how differently you can make you can bring about a solution in your brand's problem that you're trying to address. Reset. Okay, please go back to the drawing board, understand how your consumers have changed, renew your relationship with your brands, with your marketing partners. Understand that while there is a professional relationship, you can also make that difference in a personal relationship, and how that could make a huge impact in the workspace. Stronger marketing automation, very, very important. I think that personalization and precision in terms of capturing the journey of the consumer today and understanding their life path is going to bring about a huge difference to business growth. And please be responsive and not reactive. So I'd like to leave you with this very cool video that I found yesterday. It's actually a travel company's ad, but it's very, very simple. Like I said, nostalgia and emotions come together. So please, if you can play that video for me.
While you're waiting, should we shoot a couple of questions out?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. We were speaking about e-commerce, and just wanted to understand from Forever 21's perspective, have we looked at what are the changes that we've seen on social commerce with Snapchat, Facebook Shop, and Instagram all partnering with Shopify? What are the changes that we're looking at it from a social commerce angle?
Sure. So Shopify is something that So actually, this is quite unfortunate, but and it's not confidential anymore. But Forever 21's Instagram account. Oh, this is another growth um in business opportunities is hacking. So a lot of people have a lot of free time, so they're hacking into accounts. And Forever 21's Instagram account got hacked about 2 weeks ago, and we lost all our content, unfortunately. Because of that, our plans of launching with Shopify have gotten delayed. We do plan to introduce that 2 weeks down the line now. However, we have amped up our efforts on social commerce with Facebook Shop and with Shop the Gram coming into play. Our social contribution post-COVID has gone up from 6% to 16%, which is huge. And I'm not sure if I want to invest in Snapchat because I'm still waiting to see how the medium is reviving. I do understand that Roposo is a strong medium for us to look into. But we do see that 16% going to about 20-25% with Shopify coming into play. So yes, because the consumer is spending so much time on social commerce has become very integral to our e-commerce strategy. I think all of us have faced when we were kids. This is what I talk about: impactful, snackable content. This is something that this travel company has created, and using Mario that all of us have played as kids. So I think a lot of old form of, I think we should all go back to our archives and see what triggered an emotional connect for all of us and try investing that in marketing.
So, I just want to take this opportunity to thank you, Saloni, for your time, and for almost, I think, 2 weeks we've been planning this, and it's been an absolute pleasure to work with you. So I really appreciate it. And to all the people who have joined from various other agencies, brands, I hope that this session was insightful. Do keep a lookout on Clevertise's channel. We're going to have a lot more sessions like this. And Saloni, please do join us again. Great.
It was so nice talking to you guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. And you happen to be the first one who has started this
I know.
for us. Somebody, one of my clients calls me and he's like, why are you not doing Sri Ganesh with us and with somebody else? I was like, wait for it.
So, yeah. Okay, guys. See you. Thank you.
Thank you, Saloni.
Thanks, Saloni.
Bye.
Thank you, Saloni.
Bye.